I'm John Jannarone, Editor-in-Chief of CorpGov and IPO Edge. Very happy to be here at the New York Stock Exchange with the founder and CEO of InvestorCom, our good friend John Grau. John, thanks for joining today.
Hi, John.
So John, I'm very happy to say, has attended our conference down in Palm Beach a couple times. Great to see him in the flesh again, getting back to normal these days here, doing in-person interviews. So John, tell us, for those who don't know your business, what is InvestorCom and what do you guys do?
So InvestorCom is really a shareholder communications firm. Okay, so we focus on really two things. One is communicating with stockholders around any type of campaign that involves shareholder response, whether that be a proxy solicitation, where shareholders need to respond to a company that needs an election of directors or any type of merger and acquisition, any type of a contested proxy, any kind of a shareholder outreach. And then we also specialize in trying to understand who the shareholders of a publicly traded company's stock are. So who the underlying stockholders would be that really control the buying and selling of a company shares.
Great. Now, you just reminded me of something, John. As I've worked with you and some of your colleagues, we've seen companies that have a lot of retail investors. Does that get tricky tracking those folks down? Especially during the COVID days, people started getting these stimulus checks, so you got these big retail shareholdings. Tell us how that's affected your work.
Yeah, that really does. And some stockholders, and while many companies, such as companies listed on the NYSE, or maybe companies that could be a bit smaller, some companies have large institutional stockholders, and sometimes that can be a predominant part of their stockholder base. But also, as we get into the kind of the post-COVID era, there are many more companies that are seeing stockholders that are more retail, due to some of the meme stocks and folks that are getting a lot more involved in online trading and a lot more platforms that are becoming available, and more younger investors getting involved in investing as well and drawn to these online platforms. We have the ability to really take a look at where some of the retail brokerage firms are and who these smaller individuals are, but also why they're buying shares, what motivates them.
Yeah.
Are they buying because they like the types of companies that they're investing in, or because maybe it's just a good stock, good opportunity.
Great. So that's one issue companies are facing, dealing with retail investors. What are some of the other issues your clients are facing these days?
Well, a lot of it, whether it be retail investors or, a big thing these days called, ESG, environmental, social, governance issues. A lot of companies, particularly bigger companies, are held to a very high standard because of board diversity issue, environmental issues that companies are really dealing with. Are they being responsible with respect to their environmental platform and their environmental footprint, I should say? And a lot of institutional shareholders are really putting together very high standards for how they're, on the proxy voting side, on how they're supporting the board of directors on these very important issues. So that's really a real hot button this year that we're seeing.
Great. Now we're just finishing up proxy season here. What's the mood out there in the world of shareholder activism? What are you seeing in that department?
Yeah. Well, we're seeing a lot of seeing a little more activism this year than last year. We're seeing it across all types and sizes of companies. We're seeing many more settlements this year also, because I think that more companies are just willing to kind of deal with the activists and engage with the activists this year.
Yeah.
More proxy contests based on governance and social issues as well. But there will always be companies that have board concerns. And I think the good news is that with all of these ESG issues out there that I just mentioned, boards are a lot more aware, particularly the bigger companies. Boards, I would say, 80 to 90% of the boards that we deal with, and particularly all of the companies on the NYSE these days, are putting significant efforts into having a very ESG friendly company, proxy, making their boards diverse and being very socially responsible. But it's a process. It takes years, and or at least a year or two for there to be some type of responsible turnover for the companies to kind of put out the right footprint. You don't want to just have more change for change's sake. It needs to evolve. So we're seeing that's an issue, and so that's really what we're seeing this year on the proxy front, in part. I could talk for hours about this, right? But I don't think we have hours.
Okay, how about this? Can you make a prediction? Do you see more activism coming? I mean, you said it's up a little bit from last year. Do you think, is that trend going to continue?
I think a lot of that has to do with the markets. Let's see what happens with the markets. We're getting some positive news on maybe, on inflation being a little tamer, some positive, vibes on the less of a possibility of recession. We'll see what happens. It depends if the markets take a hit, there's less likelihood that there'll be more value opportunities for activists. So there will always be reasons for activism, because there'll always be management teams that do need to have reminders for good governance. But with the larger companies, I'll see some less of a trend in big time activism, yet it will always be around.
Gotcha. You remember at our conference in Palm Beach, there's a panel on universal proxy. I can't remember if you were on it or not.
I was.
All right, good. I know that was only a few months ago, but let's just talk about that for a second. There was a lot of buzz around universal proxy. Has it been all it was cracked up to be? Has it really impacted campaigns much? What have you seen?
So far, I have not seen much of a tremendous impact on the outcome of campaigns. Okay, there was a lot of talk, like a lot of issues, but to date, I have not seen a tremendous impact on the outcome. Universal proxy has been a big, mechanical change for how proxies have been put together and how people think about how proxy campaigns are run. But I think it really hasn't changed, the outcome.
That's really interesting, because there was so much discussed about it, right? But oh well.
Right. Right. Oh well. I mean, still to be determined. Proxy season has, at least from what I've heard and from what I've experienced firsthand, it started a little bit late and it's still continuing for us. So I think we need a full 12 months to really determine truly what the result is, but I haven't seen significant change as a result of universal proxy.
Great. Just one more for you, John. So we're talking about proxy season, which is, around the springtime, but, they used to call it the off season in the fall, and, there wasn't as much activity. Has that changed? Are you expecting to see more action in the fall?
More action in the fall, more action in the summer. I mean, the days of, I remember, back in the day, and back in the 1990s, maybe 1980s. Yes, I'm that old. But I mean, we used to have very little to do over the summers. And, I'm trying to remember the last time I was able to take a very peaceful summer vacation, and it's been many years. So I think that we're going to be, just speaking for myself, and I also know that my colleagues in the business also feel the same way. It's still going to be pretty active, in the summer, although lighter, but also in the fall it's going to pick up. So while, between now and the rest of the year, things will subside from what they were in April and May, there's still a lot of activity going on.
All right, great, John. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much.
It's great to be here.
Awesome. So that's John Grau, founder and CEO of InvestorCom. I'm John Jannarone, founder and editor-in-chief of IPO Edge and CorpGov.